Last time on Astro's Dev Log, Astro shared his experiences with Anime Nebraska 2024, sharing the joys and the struggles of cosplay. He also discussed his time completing the Line Rider clone from his roadmap, as well as Helix Jump. After refocusing on game development, Astro revealed he was starting to program the AI for his Pac-Man themed horror game, Project 256, and that the next entry on the devlog would host a lovingly crafted retelling of his progress this year. It's time to see just how far Astro has come since the beginning of 2024.
Let's use some contact with a test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they
This is a new and strange environment first. Just suddenly finding yourself in orbit.
Godspeed, Jonathan.
All right, lift off and the clock has started. Yes, sir. Reading it loud and clear.
Four computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Discovery Houston, I've got a good picture, Steve.
Discovery Houston, right here. Discovery North Throttle.
Now playing entry number 10.
Hi, and welcome to a very special entry of Astro's Dev Log. We've reached the end of 2024, and I can't think of a better way to close things off than doing a recap of the year. So please, viewers old and new, join me as I tell the tale of my journey through game development in 2024. This year started with an announcement. I was no longer doing Twitch streams and instead was completely focusing on game development. Prior to this announcement, I'd been streaming and working on a game simultaneously. But trying to do both proved to be far too much work. However, if I was going to dive back into game development, I needed to do more research. I needed a better grasp on programming and using Unity. To that end, I went in search of resources. What I found were two promising courses on the learning platform known as Udemy, which I'd used in the past for learning Blender and graphic design. So, from late January into early March, I worked on these courses, taking notes, practicing, and really soaking up the material. However, there was a problem. One of the courses, which I came to call the Dummy Course, had been teaching me coding practices that were, as described by those with a doctorate in computer science, complete doo-doo. If I had used these practices in an actual game, it would suffer with slow speeds, clunky mechanics, and numerous other issues. As I was about to abandon the dummy course, I'd had an idea. You see, this massive course came with hundreds of assets. It would have been such a waste just to delete everything. So instead, what if I attempted to just redo the course? This time with proper code. I vowed to do just that and set off yet again to find courses and resources that could teach me more about C#. This is when I discovered Unity's intermediate scripting course. This small, nearly 2-hour course introduced me to worlds of new features and concepts that I'd never seen before. Suddenly, C# was more complex than I'd ever known. But I needed to know more, and so I dove deeper after I finished the course. With the aid of W3 schools, Skillshare, YouTube videos, and online forums, I opened up a world of programming that I'd never been introduced to. For a little perspective, this would be like finding out that the pair of shoes you wear every day had a secret button that allowed you to fly. And then the rest is you trying to learn how to use this newfound flight mode, but constantly crashing into trees and power lines. Hello! As I learned more, I did my best to incorporate these new practices into the demi course. Things were looking up. It seemed like I was back on track. I thought I'd be able to confidently resume my work on Project Peel by the beginning of this summer. However, it would be an understatement to say I was in over my head. In April, I'd reached my biggest challenge yet. One that still haunts me to this very day. The inventory. This system broke me. I spent over a solid week just trying to get it right, and by the end, I barely understood how it worked. The inventory made me realize that my grasp on these concepts wasn't as cemented as I thought, and to complicate things, I kept running into what I thought was conflicting information as I tried to straighten things out. But I pressed onwards. I arrived at what was going to be the grand finale, the final fray, the magnum opus of any game. The AI. This time, however, I attempted to come prepared. I arrived on the scene with a collection of Udemy courses that were specifically about the subject matter. I thought I prepared for war. Except there was one other issue. One that no amount of effort or research can solve. Burnout. You see, by that point, I'd been grinding for almost 5 solid months. On top of a full-time job making devlogs and trying to maintain a social life. Needless to say, I wasn't doing so great. I couldn't so much as look at a script without feeling intense dread. So, I put myself first, and I took a giant step back. I stopped working on C#. I knocked the devlogs down to 1 a month rather than 2. And then I did whatever came naturally. I wound up working on new 3D assets for Project Peel. I've said it once, and I will say it again. I am an artist, not a programmer. Or so I'd like to think. Anyways, I let myself recover from the burnout during June into mid-July, but I knew that I needed to get back up and continue onwards. However, it was time for a different approach. I finally gave in and completely abandoned the dummy course. Instead, my new plan was to undergo a series of full-length game tutorials to help me break back into programming, and then I'd use them as a means to observe how others have used these C# features that I'd been trying to learn about in the spring. By the end of August, I'd made games such as Pong, Snake, Donkey Kong, and Frogger. The things I learned earlier this year started to click, everything started to make more sense when I could see practical examples. September rolled in, and I made my way into more difficult points on my roadmap. The videos were getting longer and more complex, exactly as planned. However, a compelling turn of events happened that month. As I finished a tutorial on how to create Pac-Man, I had another idea. What if Pac-Man, one of the very first titles classified as a horror game, was made in 3D? Now, I was far from the first person to come up with this idea, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I could make it unique, something special. So, I announced this idea as my newest project, named Project 256. I began to work on it immediately, taking what I learned from the Pac-Man course and applying it in a 3D space, rather than 2D. However, then October creeped in. It was time to put down the development once again. Now I was preparing for Anime NebraskaCon and celebrating the Halloween season with friends and family. After a chaotic departure, I readjusted myself back over to game development in November. I finished another listing on my roadmap and marched onwards with Project 256. And now, we arrive at After releasing the last devlog in November, I revisited all of the notes I've taken so far. And to my extreme delight, many of the things I'd struggled with months ago read like second nature to me. These things had cursed me, kept me up at night. Things that had frightened and confused me were no longer my demons. Instead, they'd become my greatest weapons. It was a surreal form of satisfaction. Like looking in a mirror after hitting the gym and seeing all of your glorious gains. Except instead of a throbbing bicep, I had a throbbing brain. My heart raced with excitement, my knees buckled with relief. I eased inside as I unclenched my... Anyways, as I looked up from my notes, a wild smile grew over my face. And so, my dear viewers, what happened next? Absolute game development carnage. I launched myself into the next point on the roadmap, being an endless runner course made by SamYam. And you know what happened? I finished it. In spectacular fashion. Yet another marvelous tutorial from SamYam. Except this time I didn't get kicked in the balls. Very nice. I would strongly recommend it. simultaneously, I took the Project 256 AI by the horns, flipped it upside down, and punched it into the stratosphere.
Game!
It's done. Behold. Okay, so let me drop the old storyteller persona for just a moment and say that I may be exaggerating just a little. But it is true. As I read through my notes after posting the last devlog, I was very surprised by how much I'd grown over the last year, especially with the breaks in the summer and the fall. It gave me this resolve to make one final push this year, so I decided to dive into SamYam's Endless Runner, and I kept the heat on the AI for 256 as well. In all seriousness, I need to give SamYam another huge shout out for her wonderful Endless Runner video. This is a tough one, so if you're a complete beginner, I would maybe try something else before attempting this one. But I had just enough experience to eke my way through and keep up with the video. There were plenty of new things I learned in this one, like that Unity's random number generator doesn't actually work the way you think it would, or, server-side data storage that's completely free to use in any game with under 10,000 users? Yeah, that was cool as hell. And I'll definitely be looking into that. Anyways, SamYam, thank you for another wonderful video. Links will be in the description if you want to check that out, along with links to every resource I've mentioned or have had on screen, including YouTube channels or Udemy courses. But the majority of this month went into reflecting and writing this devlog. It's a hell of a thing to sum up an entire year's work in under 15 minutes and keep it interesting. There were a lot of details I left out just to keep this under 30 minutes, so if you're curious, you can always go back and watch the other logs. I can only hope you enjoyed my story, and if you did, maybe leave a like, maybe subscribe, perhaps share this video among friends? Just a thought. No pressure. Anyways, let's put this thing to rest. Well, as you can see, a lot has happened this year. 2024 was crazy. But looking back at it all, the highs and the lows, I can't believe all of the things I've managed to do, and all the things I've learned along the way, and I don't just mean game development. I learned so much about video editing, voice recording, and script writing, not to mention all of the practice I got for graphic design, 3D modeling, and music composure. And most important of all, I got the experience of sharing every single step of the way with you. Of course, there's still more to learn, but there always will be. That's the thrill of it. You'll never know everything, but it's the chase, the pursuit, that feeling of, I can get better at doing this, that drives us to keep going. There's always going to be more to learn, and even more to do. And that is exciting. And while this may be a wrap for 2024, I'm coming into 2025 soaring higher than ever. But like I said, there's still plenty to do. After all, the roadmap isn't finished. Project 256 still has a long way to go, and Project Peel is only getting older. So my friends, sit down, strap in, and brace yourselves. Because I have a funny feeling that next year is going to be a little crazy. Till next time, this is the one and only Astro-Drifter. Wishing you a wonderful holiday and a spectacular new year. And genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for watching.